Hello everyone, welcome to the video. I'm Jake, and just like we did in one of the videos before where we looked at goalkeepers and defenders, in this video we're going to be looking at some midfielders, and by midfielders I mean CDMs, centre mids and cams. We will do wingers and attackers in like another video. We're going to be going over some of the best young midfielders in FM20 after the most recent update. And like I said in the last video, this is not the list of the best three. I'm going to be doing three in each position, so three defensive midfielders, three centre mids, etc. These aren't going to be the three best players in each position. It's going to be players that I have seen in my save do well, players that might fit. There might be one player who would fit a budget of a mega team and a player who would fit a budget of a championship team. I like to vary it up so that hopefully if you're watching you can at least find one player who would suit your team, your style, and maybe you can pick them up and get them in your side. So we're in 2024 here, so most of these players will be in their early to mid 20s now. Their stats would have developed nicely. Obviously they could develop more in your save, less in your save. Obviously Football Manager is dependent on stuff like game time, happiness and all that. So there's no guarantee that players will be as good in your save. They could be better, who knows. So what we're going to do is we're going to show a screenshot of each player's stats at the start of Football Manager. Then we'll compare it to their current stats in this 2024 save, and we can talk about how they're developed, how cheap you might be able to get on, what kind of team they would fit, that kind of thing. So without further ado, let's get into the first player, who is Florentino Luis from Benfica. So here he is now in 2024, he is 24 years old, valued at £72 million, currently playing for PSG on an extraordinary wage. He's got amazing stats. I'm pretty sure he is one of the best defensive midfielders you can get. He starts off amazingly too. Like, he isn't a player that you're going to develop and then he'll be good. He will already walk into most teams with his current stats at whatever age he starts off at. I think it's like 18 or 19. But now that he's developed well and he's got 40 caps for Portugal too, his stats are amazing. You can see the amount of dark greens he's got. His mentals are really good and they're only going to go up over time. His physicals are the things that obviously won't change too much in his development, but they are already doing really well. He's a really all-round player physically, he's 6 foot tall. He's got great stats for a defensive midfielder, really good technical stats too. And I think if you're one of the big teams, you need to try and get this guy early, get him into your team and probably build your midfield around him. So in terms of his career so far, he starts off at Benfica and then he was there for a couple of seasons, it looks like, until Liverpool picked him up for 49.5 million. A few seasons later he goes to PSG for 140 million. So this is going to be a player who will cost a decent sum, so you'll probably have to be a pretty big team to pick him up. But I think the earlier the better here. I imagine if Liverpool had gone from a season earlier, maybe they'd be looking at 30 million, 40 million, who knows. But I think the rewards that this guy will bring you and the fact that he's going to be there for years and years to come prove that he's the kind of player that you just need to get in on, get him in your team, sit him at the bottom of that midfield and just let him do his thing, because he is just a great player. As you can see, he's a model citizen as well, which is the exact personality you'd want for this kind of position. So yeah, Florentino Luis is a top player. Now let's get into the next one. For a bit of a cheaper option, it's Sandro Tonali from Brescia. Okay, so here is Sandro Tonali in 2024. It looks like he's about to move to Liverpool for £56 million from Juventus, but right now he is at Juventus. He's had 9 caps for Italy. And looking at his stats, he looks like a proper leader in midfield. Obviously, these players are only going to be 24, 23, whatever. So this isn't their final attributes. They obviously will get better. And this guy, his physicals, they're okay. They're just really all-round physicals. And for a defensive midfielder, that's fine. It's his mentals and his technicals where he really stands out, especially his 18 determination, which means he's only going to get better. He's very composed in the middle of midfield. It's not often you get someone who can pass as well as they can tackle. So he's very much an all-round. I'm sure he could play centre mid. Let's have a look. Yeah, he can play centre mid just as well as he can play defensive mid, and that doesn't surprise me. He's a very good player, Sandro Tonali. With Football Manager, sometimes you get the players that they're good in Football Manager, but in real life they're never really going to be anything. But I think this guy's going to be one of the world's best players in the next few years. You had the video the other day of Andrea Pirlo. They were asking him what he thinks about Tonali, because they often get compared, and Pirlo was like, yeah, I think Tonali's going to be better than me, which is obviously very high praise from Pirlo. And if he really does do that well, then he's going to be an amazing player. And with Tonali, as you can see, Everton bought him. So if you're just like a mid-table Premier League team, the best thing about this guy is he's not going to cost you a big sum for how good of a player you're getting here. As you can see, Everton in 2021 got him for free from Brescia. Brescia, obviously, they're not going to command the most money because they're quite a lowly Serie A team, so it won't cost you too much to take them off their hands. I don't know whether, I think in most cases it's going to be more than a free. I would assume about £20 million for him at least. I think Everton have got a bit lucky here, but then as you can see, he was a great player in the Premier League for a few years until Juventus have picked him up for £26.5 million. He's been really good from over the course of one season, one of their standout players, and now it looks like he's on his way to Liverpool to replace Florentino Luis, who they've sold to PSG. So the two players in the video we've looked at already are kind of swapping places around the big teams as like the best defensive midfielders. And Tonali, I mean, considering Everton got him for free. If you can get him for anywhere £20 million or under, he's definitely worth it. And if you're even like a lower league Premier League team, maybe you're a mid-table team in the Bundesliga or anything like that, I reckon you could actually pick this guy up. And he will easily be one of the best midfielders in your team, and he's only going to get better. As you can see here, he's already developed into a really good player, and that's only going to improve over time. And now the final player we're going to be looking at is one that's a bit less well known. It's Marco Kana. So here is Marco Kana, I don't know how you pronounce it. We did have a scout on him a few years ago because I was looking to buy him for my Chelsea team in this save, but we decided not to because we got a player who I'll show later on instead. But this guy is such a good talent. He's only 21 years old in 2024, so he must start off pretty young. I'd imagine 16 or 17. Really good physical stats. The natural fitness will really help in the midfield if you want him to just press and press all game. He's already got good mental stats, and like he is only 21 compared to the other players who are 24, so they'll only go up with time. And obviously mental stats do go up a lot more as the players get older, but his technicals are the place where he really shines. He's great at passing, like really good, but as well as that, he happens to have good tackling technique, aggression, anticipation, bravery, composure. He makes good decisions, he concentrates, and that is why not only can he play defensive midfield, he can play in the centre mid pretty well too, but he's also natural at centre back. He's already got 28 caps for Belgium at the age of 21, as well as 26 under 21 caps, so he's already a fully fledged international. And in terms of his career so far and how much you can get him for, he starts off at Anderlecht, as you saw in the screenshot. So Inter Milan bought him in 2021 for £20 million pretty much. Then PSG picked him up a couple of years later for £40 million. Then he's gone back to AC Milan for £30 million. He's been a bit all over the place, not really been given a time to shine anywhere. As you can see, never really got more than 20 appearances in anywhere other than Anderlecht. But I imagine if you took him off Anderlecht early on, developed him a bit in your youth system or on a loan or something, and then before you know it, he will fit into your team. Again, like Tonali, if you're a mid-table Premier League team or anything like that, I'm sure you could pick him up pretty easily and hopefully get similar results to what Inter Milan got out of him in his first season. Look, 7.72 overall match rating. Obviously, he did only play 6 games, but still, he looks like a really good player. He's one that I haven't come across too many times in this save, but he's one that I've tried to buy a few times. So Marco Kana, looking like a really good player. If you are a mid-table Premier League team, maybe get a scout on him and Tonali. Tonali would be a solution to go straight into your team, and Kana maybe in a few years will develop and be good enough to go into your first team too. So that'll be it for the defensive midfielders. Now we're going to go on to the centre midfielders, and we'll start off with the biggest name probably on this list, Eduardo Camavinga. So here is Camavinga in 2024, still only 21 years old, and my god, this player, he plays for my Chelsea team, so I have first-hand experience with him. He is such a solid player, would walk into probably any team in the world, even at the age of 21, even 2 years ago when he was 19. He's got really good physical stats. He's 6 foot. He can play in the centre mid or defensive midfield. I play him as a deep line playmaker in defence, but obviously you can play him as a Mazzala it seems, but I have Mason Mount there. So yeah, he's useful across a few different positions in that midfield, and as you can see, his mental stats are really good too, and he's only 21. He has got really good technical stats too, as you can see. He's got really good passing, marking, technique, tackling. He can do anything. He'd probably be one of the better defensive midfielders on the list of players I just showed you, but I choose him in the midfield centre because that's where he's natural. He's got so many dark green stats. He's such a good player for us. Left-footed too, which you don't get many midfielders who are. Obviously, most of them are right-footed. So it's nice to have one who is left-footed, and I play him on the left-hand side of my midfield. And he's been so good for me so far. As you can see, I had to pay 104 million for him off Real Madrid, but Real Madrid got him for a couple of seasons into the save. They got him for 34.5 million. So if you're one of the big teams, I would get your hands on him straight away because he will walk into your first team as he did for Real Madrid, as he did for us. Get him really high match ratings across the board. He starts off at Rennes in France, and yeah, he's not going to cost you a huge amount of money, but if you don't get to him quick, then you'll have to do what I did with Chelsea and pay a really big sum to get him off Real Madrid's hands, or whoever he goes to in your save. So hopefully you can get him early on, get him into your team, and again, build your midfield around him because he's only 21 and he's already had a really good career so far. A key player in my sides, and yeah, goals and assists, he's probably not going to get you many unless you play him in a different kind of role, but he is just a solid midfielder, never underperforms. He's always so good, and he is one of the best players I've got at the club. So Eduardo Camavinga, if you can get him, go for him as soon as you can. Now the next player we're going to be looking at is Hannibal Mejbri, so you can just have a quick look at him on the screenshot and then we'll get into his stats. So here is Mejbri at Manchester United. He can play as a deep line playmaker, advanced playmaker, Mazzala. He can play all across that midfield. Good in the attacking midfield too, but as you can see, he's got really good stats. He's tall, which always helps in midfield. He's physical. He's playing for the France national team, also at 21 like Camavinga. Hasn't developed as much as him, but I mean, looking at his stats, he's a very, very good player. Like, technically, he might even be better than Camavinga. He's one of Manchester United's star players, really. Always in their first team. He's got great mental stats, which obviously will only go up. Technically, he is amazing, and physically, he's really good too. He starts off at Manchester United, and no one else has really tried to buy him since then, so I can't tell you how much you'd be able to get him for. He probably won't come too cheap. Obviously, he is coming from Manchester United, but he's in their first team for a few years, so maybe you could get your hands on him early on before he breaks into the first team, because he's going to cost a bomb now, because as you can see, he's played 3 consistent seasons for them and been a pretty good player, and he's now hitting over 7s in match rating at the age of 21, and his stats are really, really good. So yeah, Hannibal Mejbri, if you can get your hands on him, I don't know how much he's going to cost you, but always try and inquire about him. See if you can get him. He could go straight into your midfield. Maybe a loan move might be best too, I don't know. So just try and have a look at him, because he is going to be a star, and he's already a star on this save. He's only going to get better too. So the next player we're going to be looking at is a cheaper option, and it's Billy Gilmour. So Billy Gilmour, he's one of the players in my save, because obviously I was the Chelsea manager, I had such a good midfielder, I couldn't really get him into the team, and that's why he hasn't developed amazingly in this save, but he's still a really good Premier League player. Decent stats all round, he will get better over time, always playing for the Scottish national team pretty much since the start. His technical stats are where he shines for a player that won't cost you too much. You could try and get him on loan too. I'll show you a bit about him in a second in terms of his career so far. Yeah, like I say, he should go up more in your save if you give him more game time. I didn't at Chelsea. Not because I didn't think he was a good player, just because I had so many players at Chelsea that I just never really got round to giving Billy Gilmour a chance. See, as you can see, he's developed quite nicely, but he could develop more. Now, in terms of his career, we sent him on loan to Salford, Charlton, QPR, Aston Villa, Groningen, and now we've sold him for Sheffield to 9.5 million. Now, you would think, no, that's not a very good career. He obviously isn't that good of a player if he's playing at these kind of teams. But if you can get him on loan like these championship sides have, when he was playing for QPR, he won player of the championship at the age of whatever he was, like 20, I think, at that point. And as you can see, he killed it for QPR. He got them promoted. Then he got a loan in the Premier League, where he ended up with pretty much a 7 match rating, playing for Aston Villa, a team that I think went down in that season. So you can see he was one of the stars of that team. So if you can get him on loan, or maybe even buy him off Chelsea, he's not going to cost you that much money. And if you get him on loan, you're going to get a player for a couple of years, hopefully, who will really help your team. If you're a championship team or a lower league Premier League team, he will really help you get better. And that was proved by last season, he went on loan to Groningen. Now, you kind of think that was a step back after playing in the Premier League, and it kind of was. But then this man, Billy Gilmour, joined Groningen, and all of a sudden Groningen won the Eredivisie and the Dutch Cup, and he pretty much carried them to it with a 7.3 match rating, getting goals, assists, player of the matches. So yeah, if you can get him from Chelsea on loan, obviously this is probably like the worst he will perform on a save. He'll probably be better given more match time at a bigger club, and a consistent club as well, and not being moved around like he was here. So if you can get him on loan, I really would. He will really help your team out, and if you can buy him, then go for that too. I'm sure he's going to have a good Premier League career with Sheffield and whoever he goes on to after that. I just couldn't fit him into my team, so I sold him. But yeah, he's a really good player if you don't have as much money to buy the other players that we've talked about so far. Now, going into the attacking midfielders, we'll start off with one of the biggest names in football right now, Kai Havertz. So here is Havertz. Again, I've got him in my Chelsea team. Don't worry about his international caps, because obviously Football Manager doesn't have Germany on the game, so he's not going to get any more caps for that. They use like fake players in the German team, I think. So yeah, he's a left-footed midfielder, pretty good physical stats. He's tall at 6'2". His mental stats at 25 are great. Obviously, he is probably in the prime of his career now. So this is what you should expect when he's developed really well, like he has for our club. 4.5-star current ability. Obviously, that is only relevant to my Chelsea team. That is how star ratings work. So he is one of the best players in this Chelsea side. He's composed, he makes good decisions, he's got good flair, he works really well in the team, as you can see with his teamwork, his vision is off the ball. But other than that, his technical stats are also amazing. You've got really good passing, really good technique. And he, for me, has probably been one of the best signings I've made on this Chelsea save. Obviously, you all probably know about him from real life too. He's not one of these hidden gems. He is pretty much one of the best Wonderkids in the world. Valued at £84 million. We had to pay a pretty big fee to get him off Bayer Leverkusen pretty early on. So he is a player where if you are a big team, you're probably going to be the only teams that can get him. But he will be your main midfielder for years to come, like he has been for us. As you can see, always hitting over a 7 rating for us, and for Leverkusen too. So if you can get your hands on him for a big fee, it will be. But it's a fee that will be worth it, because you'll never really have to replace this guy until he retires pretty much. So Kai Havertz, one of the best midfielders on the game. If you can get your hands on him, definitely do it. And now for a bit of a cheaper option we're going to be looking at, and I might butcher this pronunciation, Yari Veshcharan. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to try and pronounce this guy's last name. We'll just call him Yari for now. He can play anywhere in the midfield and on the wing, so he's really useful in terms of versatility. Valued at £70 million. Decent physical stats, but very good technical and mental stats at only the age of 23, consistently playing for the Belgian national team. He is a player like Havertz, similar to him, but he will cost you a lot less because of where he comes from, and he isn't as developed in his career yet like Havertz is. When you get Havertz, you're already getting a world-class player straight away. With this guy, he's going to take a bit of development, but he's been really good for his teams. As you can see, he went from Anderlecht a couple of seasons in, so you could probably get him for cheaper than £30 million like Juventus did if you get him early on. But yeah, after a few seasons, he goes to Juventus, get 7s across the board, 7.45 there, 7.27 there, 7.25 and a 7.59 after his move to Real Madrid for £100 million. So as you can see, you need to get your hands on this guy as early as you can. He is such a good player. If I didn't have Havertz, I would have gone for this guy. And yeah, a bit of a cheaper option than Havertz, a similar kind of player. If you can get him and don't have the money for Havertz, maybe you're a mid-table Premier League team, you could probably pick this guy up. And again, someone to build your team around because he's such a good player and he's now being built around at Real Madrid. So if he's good enough for Real Madrid, he'll be good enough for your whatever Watford team or whatever you've got. And speaking of Watford, our last guy is a guy who now currently plays for Watford in the save, and it's Peleo Marilla from Gijón. So this is probably one of the players who he isn't as well known. He is still well known within Football Manager because he's a pretty good player last year, I think it was. And he's been good this year too. As you can see, he's a really all-round player in terms of his stats. Nothing stands out that much. But the reason I want to show this guy is because in this save he's played for Watford consistently. He got brought there a few seasons ago from Gijón for pretty cheap. You can see here, only for £10 million a couple of seasons back. And since then he's guided Watford to 2 5th in the league finishes in a row, which is very good for a Watford team that is pretty average. And he's been their key player. He's even featured in the Premier League team of the season playing for Watford. Getting 7 match ratings across the board with goals and assists all round, player of the matches. He is one of the best players in the league. And he comes so cheap from Gijón too. I'm sure if it went for him earlier in the save, he would have been even cheaper. But yeah, Peleo Marilla is very much an option. If you're a cheaper team, even in the Championship, you might be able to get this guy. Obviously, his wages are a lot now, but that's because he's played so well at Watford. They've had to give him a new contract. If you go to Gijón early and try and get him, you could probably pick him up for £10 million like Watford did. So if you're a Championship team or a lower league Premier League team, I would go for him. If you can't afford the other options, this is a guy who isn't going to cost you a bomb. You could sell him on for more after a while if you wanted to, but he is going to be a very good player for you and will hopefully bring you as much success as he has brought this Watford team in this save. So that is it for this video, guys. Hopefully you have found someone who could help your team. If you did enjoy the video, guys, or maybe there was someone in this video who you didn't know about, or someone that you're now going to buy that could boost your team, feel free to hit the like button. It would really help me out, and comment down below if you think I missed someone out or you really like one of the players in this list maybe. It's always good to hear from you guys and hear about what your teams are and players that have been really good for you, because obviously it will help me in my save too, and it's just nice to hear back from you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I will be doing the attackers soon too. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed. I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.